Today we are going to make the video that absolutely nobody asked for. All Steam machines come with 16 gigabytes of a single SODIMM stick of RAM. There was some confusion about whether or not some had 2 and some had 1. Apparently, a correction came out from Valve that said they all have 1 stick of RAM. And people have been throwing in another stick of RAM to see what kind of performance uplift you get by doubling the RAM and going to a true dual channel versus a single channel of dual bank RAM. So I decided to take it a step further and put a Steam machine's value worth of RAM into the Steam machine because I didn't know I had this, but I found it on the shelf. It's a 128 gigabyte kit, a 5600 mega transfer SODIMM. Today's video is sponsored by Arctic and their new Liquid Freezer 3 Pro. This isn't just a refresh, they've made a bunch of meaningful improvements. The new P12 Pro fans move more air while staying quieter at lower RPM. There's a native offset mounting for both Intel and AMD to better target the CPU hotspot, and Intel users get an included contact frame for even more mounting pressure. It also has a thick 38mm radiator to better handle heavy thermal loads, plus a built-in VRM fan and really clean cable management with the fan wiring hidden inside the tubing sleeve. If you're building a high-performance system and want excellent cooling without a bunch of extra hassle, check out the Arctic Freezer 3 Pro using the link below. It's funny, I found this on the shelf the other day when we went to get the SSD to do the upgrade for the SSD in the Steam machine, and I picked it up. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that's SODIMM. I'm like, 128 gigs of 2x64. We can't even find any definitive answers on whether or not the system can support 128. I don't know why it wouldn't, considering the fact that the architecture in here on the Ryzen platform absolutely supports 128 gigs. And we know many laptops that only say they support up to 32 will also work with 64 and up. It just means they may not have been QVL'd or, a vendor list, that's basically vetted to say, hey, this kit works with this. So I don't even know if it'll work, but we're gonna try it. I was like, oh, we can do something more realistic and maybe just throw 32 in there, but this is actually CUDIMM. So it's a 32 gig kit of CUDIMM SODIMM. I don't even know what laptops support CUDIMM. I guess new Intel laptops probably support it, but I have no use for that. So I'm really hoping that this works because I don't have any other SODIMM kits that I know of. Actually, I know I do have a a Corsair set of SODIMM somewhere. But the amount of teardown involved in switching out the RAM is not something that I think is very user-friendly. We took some flack in the SSD update video where we were like, hey, how user serviceable is this thing? And I talked about the fact that the RAM is extremely difficult to get to, and so many of you were like, actually, no, it's not easy to get to. If you think it's easy to get to, congratulations, you are an experienced hardware user. You're probably used to tearing things down, seeing how they work, and figuring it out and putting it back together, and surprise, it works. We build these videos with the intent of talking to the person that has no experience. Try to put yourself back in the shoes of the first time you ever tore something apart and how scary it was. The first time maybe you ever opened a laptop. Or maybe the first time you accidentally broke something, okay? And given how expensive these are and how hard they are still to get, Valve is still saying they don't expect all the orders to be fulfilled until the end of this year, which means they're way more popular than any of us truly anticipated. You gotta put yourself back in those shoes. And I think many of you have a very hard time doing that. And I think a lot of you just wanna flex your like, I can do it, it's easy. That you're not the person we're talking to. So please put yourself on mute while we talk to the rest of the people that are actually wanting to do this and are afraid to do it. So with that out of the way, 128 gigs, this is just a flex, right? There's no reason to use this at all. And it will definitely, it's $1,200 on Amazon right now, this exact kit. $1,194.98 on sale. I might add you, it's on sale, according to Amazon, which is a bunch of bullshit.
So that's more than the cheapest Steam machine, right?
Yeah, because it's like 1,054 or something like that. So this set of RAM is more expensive than this box right here. So if you were gonna do this, 32 gigs would be like the perfect sweet spot. Or even 16 gigs of dual 8 would still be better than a single stick of 16. With that said, we're gonna now go through the teardown, which is a little bit farther than we went in the last video. I'm now willing to do it, even though I haven't done my full thermal testing yet on the custom pieces we've made, because of the fact that we learned I don't have to break the thermal seal to get to the RAM. It's on the bottom between the power supply and the PCB. So it's in a really odd location. Step 1, remove the front panel. Step 2, you can do this in a couple different orders actually. Step 2 is going to be to remove the feet. We believe this is a T8, just guessing, I don't remember. I don't think yep, there it is right there. So I'm using my iFixit kit, and the only other thing I brought that I didn't have last time is I'm using a proper pry tool. So it's plastic and it's got a pointy end and a shovel end because I do not want to be using the metal on the PCB. So we want to do this right and we don't want to condone bad behavior. I also like to use the lid to contain all of the pieces. Most of the screws are the exact same size and the same type with the exception of a couple. So you don't have to really keep too much tabs on where they came from. There's a couple though that you just need to make sure they go back in their correct spot. So remove all 4 bottom feet. You can see I have my spacers on there because we were doing some thermal testing about spacing out the bottom and see how that has an effect. We're gonna probably do our testing in Windows environment for this though. That way we can see all sensors involved. I'm assuming once I install hardware info on there in the Windows environment, I should be able to see the DIMM temperatures. I should be able to see the SSD temperatures and all of that. So next step is gonna be to loosen the 2 top screws on the back panel. These are captive, they won't fall out, but you can just pop this back, tilt it down so that the tabs release, and then set that aside. Next, we need to remove this screw and this screw to get the fan and the entire PCB with everything attached to it to slide out, and then you'll be left with just a shell. Now these are the screws that are different so far, and these are specifically for those fans. I want you to keep that in mind. They're a little bit fatter, a little bit longer on the head, still the same bit size though. So we'll set those there. Now we can take this and just gently slide backwards. And this is the entire unit. This is just a box. I also love the fact that I took all the time to model the front end and get everything set up perfectly, and then Valve released the step files for these. So it was still a fun learning project though. Okay, so next thing we gotta do is we've got a few daughter boards on here we need to remove. First, we're gonna remove the SSD. So there's this screw right here on the SSD. If you're running the stock drive, this will look a little different because your drive will be very stubby versus mine. So it'll be stubby versus mine, and you'll notice the standoff won't be back here. It'll be right here, but the process is the same. Next, we are going to now remove the SSD board. So there is this metal cover right here that is holding down not only the little PCB for the SSD, but also it's holding down the ribbon cable right here. So be gentle with that. Once you take these screws out, the whole thing is gonna wanna kind of pop up on you. So you just need to not put any tension on that ribbon. So remove the bar, and we're gonna keep the components that we take off together. So now what I'm gonna do is take my little pry tool, right, the little flat end here. If you don't have a pry tool, you can do this with anything flat and plastic. I don't recommend metal. You don't wanna scratch the PCB or any of the connections, but anything flat and plastic. So this is the ribbon cable. I'm gonna push this underneath, and I'm gonna use the actual SSD mount right here as like a little bit of a fulcrum point to just sort of pop up on that. And it comes off just that easy. Now, fortunately, as you can see right there, it is an actual connector, a true connector, not just a ribbon cable that has to like slide in and then a little flap that closes. So this is a lot easier to work with. Once that's free, the SSD board is now free, and we'll just put that right here together so that we know that that's the cover that goes to that. Fortunately, the little covers are all custom shaped to fit only the boards that they attach to, so you can't put one in the wrong spot. Now we need to do the same thing over here with our video output board. Then I can lift this guy up. Then same thing. Now, because I don't have something to fulcrum off, I'm gonna put this underneath it, and then I'm gonna twist it like that. I'm just gonna sort of rotate it, and that should pop it straight up, like that. Boom. Now don't fold it back too hard. You don't wanna go back and forth on this and crease it or cause a break inside. So just kind of get it out of the way so it's clear when you lift the board up. If we remove this screw, and then lift this up out of the way. There you go, you can see there's a hole right there, so the foot post just sort of like goes through there like that. And then here is our HDMI. So this is the back side right here. So this is our network card, our USB 3s. We're gonna do that one next. So this one's kind of got a weird angle. Be careful now when you set this down because these are sticking out. As you can see, you don't wanna bend those and break it. That's the micro SD card reader and 2 USBs on the front. So just be very careful with those now that they're very exposed without the chassis protecting them. So I'm gonna put this on its side like this on the flat side. So now what I'm gonna do is the same sort of thing right here. I'm going to remove the metal cover holding down the ribbon cable. This one only has 1 screw. Okay, so now we have 2 right here. And actually, before I go ahead and remove the last one there, I'm gonna do the same thing here. This is the ribbon cable. This is the one you kind of have to be most careful with, because as you can see, it comes out from the PCB here, loops over the top. So it's kind of fitting in a slot right there. So when you put this back on, especially when you go to take the bottom half off and the power supply off to get to the RAM, you wanna make sure this is not getting pinched. So this is the most worrisome part right here as far as I'm concerned on the whole teardown. So same sort of thing, let's just sort of hold this and then just give it a little twist and it comes right off. And now that is free. So we'll keep that together. So now we're gonna work our way to this board right here. We can go face down on the fan, that's fine, just be gentle. Now we have a few things we have to take off here. We'll start with the micro SD connector right here. This is also, believe it or not, what's mostly holding the board down in the center that's also locating it. There's 2 locator pins in there. So we're gonna go ahead and take off these 2 screws. Okay, so when we go to take this off, this one doesn't have a ribbon cable. It actually has rigid pins that mate together when you mount it down. So when you go to take this off, I'm gonna show it sideways here. I would kind of just wiggle it side to side very gently. Now you can see the pins that are right here, which is why you want to be very gentle with it. And you can see how they locate right here. All right, so the next thing we need to do here is we're gonna remove this black cover right here. And this is covering the hold down for this ribbon cable right here, and then as well as these 3 antennas right here. So these 3 antennas need to be plugged into the correct spots. So I would highly recommend taking a photo of them, because you not only have your Wi-Fi antennas here, but also your controller antenna. So you wanna make sure that these go in their right spot. They should only fit one way, but since we will have to unroute them through some of their hold down slots, we need to make sure that those are in the right spot. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to remove the black cover. And once I undo this screw, it's gonna get a little floppy there. Just kind of set that aside. Now you can see the 3 antenna right there. So what you don't want to do with these antenna though, because I forget what the type is called, but basically it's a circle with a center pin. It's almost kind of like a coaxial in a way. If you go to put these back on and they're not aligned, you go to push it down and you mangle that pin sideways, you'll never get it to seat back in there properly. So it's important to take these off and put them on as straight up and down as possible. So I'm gonna just get my spade up under there and do the same sort of twist to pop it off. Like that. Remember, it's all in the technique, right? Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be thick, but if you can twist and you can gyrate, you can get so many things done. Same thing, I'm just gonna use the edge of the board here as a little fulcrum. Pop that up, and now we're free. So now we can go ahead and remove this screw, and this screw to get this board to release. Now we have a question that we need you guys to answer in the comments here. Phil and I were just discussing. So that make the micro SD board a granddaughter board, since it's a board attached to a board that's attached to the motherboard. So generationally, it should be a granddaughter board, right? Okay, so once I undo this whole front board should literally just pop right off. And there it is. So now what we need to do is we have to remove the fan. Now all the antennas are attached to either the fan or the heat sink. And this is where it's gonna be important to keep an eye on the routing. So you can see that there's tape here holding down this wire, there's a tab right there holding it down, there's some tape there. This kind of comes around and loops around. This has a very specific route. On the other side, there's another antenna. So this guy here comes and routes all the way around back to here. So this is where I'm gonna bring out my phone and just take some photos so I can keep tabs of what went where. Fan cable right here. This is a little bit more difficult of a cable to unplug in my opinion than the ribbon cables, because it truly is like a full connector and it's difficult to get like any sort of now the spade can get in there, but if you don't have a nice skinny spade like this, you wanna be careful. You don't really wanna yank on the wires. You pull the wire out, then your fan's not gonna work anymore and you're gonna have some real serious issues. But fortunately, because we have the spade, I should be able to get in there and just sort of twist it up. It's also a really snug fit. I might actually do a combo method of just a little tension on the wire while twisting the spade. There we go, just like that. So this one, the tab on this one looks like it's attached to the fan, so I don't have to remove that. Now this wire is taped down. It's probably gonna be taped a lot nicer than mine because mine was already removed like that. So when you go to try and remove the fan, because you can remove the fan from the heatsink, which is exactly how I wanted to do this. We don't want to remove the heatsink because I don't want to break the thermal seal, and you shouldn't either. So remove this. Anything that is being routed through the metal part right here is going to have to come off. So we are going to now just sort of work that out like this. And I think I want to kind of note which, see this one is in the middle, right? So I need to keep notice here that this one is in the middle. So I'm going to just take another photo. Now this antenna right here is pretty simple. This is on the outside, just routes through the same little twisty deal. And now that one's free. And if we go to the other side, this one kind of makes the long run, and it's the only one on that side. So right side, if you're looking at it from the rear, makes the most sense. That one shouldn't be too hard to figure out. I should be able to remove the screws for the fan. So we've got two on the bottom, one here, right there, and one down in there. And then it's just a clip on the top. Do you see why now I said in the beginning, if you've got experience tearing down electronics, you're like, it's not hard. Actually, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's daunting. There's two different, that's a different, and I need to put that screw over here because that's a fan screw. There's two different statements right there. Whether or not something is hard or something is daunting. Daunting would keep somebody from trying because of the scary risk it inherently seems to have. But I'm showing right now, if you just kind of take your time, and I'm getting a little hung up right there, and this tape again. If you just take your time, there's our fan. So we'll set this out of the way. We don't want any of those wires to get damaged. You can get it done if you just take your time. So now, what we have to do now is we have to separate the power supply, which is this whole thing down here, from the PCB and the cooler, which is up here. This is also why now I'm really starting to rethink my idea of doing water cooling with this, because I have a lot less space than I thought because I forgot about the power supply in this thing. Okay, so we now have these 4 screws in the corner. One here, one here, one here, and one here, which will now separate the power supply from the main board. Okay, so this is the 3rd screw type that we have, which are these long ones right here. Again, it's the same size, but they're just a long version of like the fan screw. So we've got these 4, all of these guys, and then these are the ones that hold the fan into the main chassis. So these are the 3 screw types. These are taped down. Okay, let's be very, very careful now, because these are taped down. Because now I'm going to be really careful when we put this back together, because it's going to lose a lot of its adhesiveness. And I want that to stay very flat when we slide that back into the chassis there. Okay, that's that. So far, it does appear to be only the ribbons that are in the tape that's holding this down. So you'll notice I'm not yanking real hard. I'm just slowly putting some tension against it and then kind of wiggling back and forth to break the adhesion. I want the tape to break, not the ribbon. But you can see just how delicate these are now. But I would not use anything to like push or splice or anything like that, because then you can just cut, right? Even with plastic, you can damage these. But I'm going very, very slow. Even using a little heat here would probably be recommended. When I go to put it back together, I'll probably just hit this with a tiny little bit of heat from the heat gun. You can use your hair dryer if you don't have a heat gun. So how does it connect to power? Okay, so that's where it gets its power right there. Gosh, I want to build a block for this so bad though. And you know what? This table shows you just how easy it is to get to the memory. I'm never gonna like not haze those people that are dumb like that. Okay, so yes, there's one stick, as you can see, and everybody has one stick. Well, not everybody, but you know what I mean, when it comes to the Steam machine. All right, now to get the RAM out, just like in a laptop, you have to push like that to the side and that to the side while you sort of lift up. They're just spring tabbed, then it pops up, easiest you'll ever experience. Okay, so I'm not sure if label goes up or label goes down, but you gotta start with the bottom one first, line it up with the slot. So there is a groove, as you can see there's a groove. Look, again, we're talking to someone that's never done this, okay? So there is a groove right here. It's not perfectly centered. This is so that you can't put it in upside down. There is a corresponding tab built into the slot. So you just need to make sure you do the bottom one first, make sure that this lines up, right? Once, it's very chunky. Once you slot that in, seat it fully, and then push down till it clicks. And you do the same thing with this one. Already that's 64 gigs. That's already what, 4 times or 8 times? 8 times?
4 times.
Yeah, 4 times. I forgot it was an 8 gig stick. Now we have 8 times the RAM initially had. I don't think this is gonna have a huge performance gain, like the capacity. Going from 1 stick to 2 sticks is the real game we're gonna be seeing here. The capacity is really not. The most cost-effective way of doing this would be if you could get another one of these sticks. I mean, easier said than done, right? Okay, so we're gonna do now the reverse order, because it's easy for us to say, just do everything backwards from the way you did it before, but that's where a lot of people kind of go, wait a minute here, I just did it along with you, so now I don't know how to go backwards. So that's what we're gonna do now. Now we are going to take our power supply, which this is a very impressive power supply, by the way. Like, what they've achieved with this is so cool. Anyway, we are now gonna take our power supply. We are going to line up, that just looks appropriate now. Like it matches the rest of the PCB. One, because it's a black PCB, fuck the Crucial brand, it's just the one we had. But anyway, the black PCB matches and the density of these chips matching all the other capacitors and chokes and such on here. Anyway, remember we need to line up the corner with the 2 prongs right here. So they're there. So it's gonna go this way. Make sure it's lined up. So push down, boom. Now, hold it. Actually, before we do that, I'm gonna screw this together, then I'll deal with those ribbon cables. So flip it over like that. Everything is free, nothing is pinched. Everything's good. So check all sides that now it's got like, bed head. There we go. We're gonna use the long screws we took out and right there. So we'll start with this one. So all 4 screws. Now there is what appears to be a screw hole here. It goes on the outside, okay? All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to attach our ribbon cables here. I wanna see if there's any more sticky left. Hey, look at that. Good enough for me. We all know I have low standards, so. Now, like I said, you could hit it with a tiny bit of heat. You'd reactivate some of that adhesive, but this is fine. I mean, how often are you planning on going here and messing with the thing? That one's intended to stay loose. And then what I gotta do now is get the fan back on. So let's take our fan. Remember to leave these things free so they're not getting bound on anything. Don't get caught up here, but it has to go over. There's like a little ramp right here. So it has to go over that. This is the only one you really have to worry about right there. There you go. Then we need to put the 2 screws. It's gonna be a little loose and funky until then, but you have to put the 2 screws back in here and down in there. And then just go till snug, don't over tighten, they're easy to strip. Now, we need to go ahead and reroute our wires. So that one went under there, that one went around there, under the corner. It went around this guy, under there, over there, under there. It's just the over-under game, okay? And I don't mean like betting. This corner right here can be a little bit pain. There we go. So now we want to have it go around right there. And then again, under, over, and then that's now ready to go back into its spot. So not so bad. This side. Remember, this one stays on the outside. This one goes in the middle. So again, under there, around there. We're gonna go ahead and plug the fan back in because that also is part of the route. Tape that back down. Now there's a little tab. So I don't know if you saw that. It actually slots into a little slot on the side of the fan right there. And then same thing here. Technically, it goes under right here, I believe, like that. Then we go around the same corner that that one wire is. And then now we're back to where this one's got to come. These both have to come around this hook right here. Just like that. Do the same thing with that one. There we go. Now things line up where they are. Right side, left side, middle. So that's probably the only scary part about removing the fan is the antenna. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back with the rear USB first. I guess it's front USB first. I could do the other sides, that way it's not left hanging, but because there's so much back here that's sort of delicate, I don't want that sort of flopping around. Okay, so I'm gonna put this on its face. And I'm going to rotate this so that the power button is on the lower corner. And remember, we do have these locator posts right here. That makes it a little bit easier to locate them. Also too, I need to make sure that this PCB sort of goes under the antenna and this ribbon cable. So let's just kind of slide that under. Locate that like that. Cool, and then I'm just gonna put one screw in for now to make sure that stays down as I reattach all of the plugs. Actually, I guess I could do all three. So we'll just do this corner, just until it stops, and then we're done. Okay, what I'm gonna do first is reattach the ribbon cable. You can see, as I already showed you, there is a connector on it, which makes it a whole lot easier. So you can just do this with your finger, just sort of feel till it locates. It'll be pretty obvious, and then push down. Just give it a snug little touch, and then we're good. So this one, kind of lost track of which one was middle, which one's not, so I have to double check those. But I know that that side goes on the far edge. This is where you just kind of gotta feel to where it's straight up and down, and then push down. You heard that solid click. It's easy to get those in an angle. So let's say this is the post and this is the pin. It's easy to go like that. And that's what you don't want, because then you can bend the pin out as it slips and misses. It's a circle, like a bowl that inserts into another bowl, right? So you need to make sure it's perfectly perpendicular, well, aligned, I guess, and then clicks down and it's really obvious. But now I need to make sure I got the right wire to go for the middle. It should be this one, yeah, because it's longer. Okay. It's also a piece of tape on here that is probably to let you know that it's for here. So, okay, now I'm gonna do the middle, same technique. Just sort of lined it up straight up and down, make sure it's not rotated. There we go, clicked in. There, that one was a really solid click. Look, I'm even being anal, like they're all pointing straight up. Now we need to do the little cover right here. Then you can tighten that one down. Boom, so now our antenna setup is fully reinstalled. Now I can show you what I meant about the daughter board or granddaughter board, whatever we were calling it, specifically for the micro SD card. So this one here, it's very important to get these little locator pins here and here lined up with the two holes, the small holes that are on the board. If those are lined up, you won't damage your pins on this board. So I'm gonna do this at a weird angle so that you can see. So let's just get that, just like that. You see how easily it just slid in? Now give it a slight little push. Now it's holding on, but if you kind of look down in there, it might be hard to see on camera. You'll see there's a gap between the connector and the board, so you can see the pins through there. That gap will disappear as you tighten down the screws. So don't try and force it with your finger down. Just tighten down the screws and then it will close that gap. So I'll do that now and then I'll show you after how that gap disappeared. So after, now you can see it's fully seated. So important to keep that in mind. And now that these are sticking out, be careful with them again. You could have done this last if you wanted. I just didn't want to leave all these wires dangling around back here, so I chose to do it now. And then just be careful. And then just be careful with the parts that are hanging out. Okay, so we'll do this one right here, which is the, I believe that's the video, right? No, that's the network card and USB. And then this is the one that is like, probably, in my opinion, the most difficult, if you will, because of just this ribbon cable at the angle that it's at. and the fact that you've got to get this sort of started in there. So there is a locator pin as well in the corner. I don't know if you saw that, I'll show you again. This locator pin right here will make the job a little bit easier because you locate it onto this hole in the corner, and then it will sort of hold its position. But what I want to do right now, just so it doesn't fall out on me, is put one screw in to hold it so I can mount down the ribbon cable. There. So now it's located. Now we can take our ribbon cable, same sort of deal here, just sort of get it lined up with our finger. You can easily tell when it's in the right spot, and then just push it down. Now that's down nicely. This particular little cover only has one screw, but you can see it has a tab that's designed to index up against this fan right here. So this way, like this, just like such. There we go. Oh, so that's now in there and located where it needs to go. That board is now installed. No fan screws or anything missing on there. Everything's in. So we only had one connector on there, so the ribbon cable is in. Now we can put it on the top of the heatsink, and we have these two boards to do on this side. Locate that right through the post. Okay, and we're gonna put this screw in because it doesn't involve the little steel cover. Push that down. It makes a nice little crunch when it goes in. This also, remember, this has the little locator tab right there. So that goes into this groove right here. And then we can put in our two remaining screws. I'm really hoping after all this it boots and we'll recognize the RAM, but if not, it's still a result. You now know. For those of you that just had a $1,200 burning a hole in your pocket, that just for like, you know what I want to do with this? I want to throw all that money into the steam machine. So moving on now, we have our SSD board. It's kind of difficult to see, but there is a locator pin, sort of ish right there. This post does not go through the board, it just sort of seats right here. And then we have the screws over here. So, like right, that post and then that post. So the angle's a little difficult for me to do it where Phil is shooting, but we'll just kind of, see how it just kind of slots in there pretty easily. So I'm gonna do this a little bit backwards here. Because we know that both those screws have to go through this bar, I still wanna put that ribbon cable on. So I'm gonna put one of the screws down now, just to plug the ribbon cable in so that the board isn't flopping around. And then once the ribbon cable is put in, I'll remove that screw and then put the crossbar on there and then mount it down again. Especially since it's so close to the edge right there. Boom, that's down. Line that up in the hole. All right, so SSD time. Again, if you have the original SSD, it'll be the short guy right here. Actually, you might, if you have a 2 terabyte, it might be the long one. I don't know, I haven't seen a 2 terabyte drive. But it could be the short one if it's the 512, could be the long one if it's the 2 terabyte. Anyway, slot this in just like the RAM. The difference is it won't click down. You have to kind of hold it with your finger and then screw down the SSD. It's great that the SSD uses the same screw as everything else. It's actually really smart of Valve to do it that way. Now we gotta slide this guy back into the box. What's in the box? Okay, just slide it in smoothly. Boom. Now we'll take these two screws. So right here. And this guy right here. Now we'll go ahead and do our feet first, and then we'll do the back cover, and then we're done. And you can see that that was a very simple, very easy, anyone can do it, 62-step, probably even more than 62 steps to be honest, 100-step program to change the RAM, which is so easy that even I can do it. So anyway, in terms of difficulty, honestly, look, real talk here, I'm throwing enough salt at those that were like, it's easy, what are you talking about? Technical knowledge and difficulty on this is probably like a 6.5, honestly. It's just, like I said, it's daunting as much as it's skill-based or difficult. It's just, there's lots of steps, there's lots of little things you can miss, and if you take your time and treat each component you're removing as a separate little job, then they all add up to the big job, which is to get to the RAM. So take your time. This tutorial literally gave you every single step of the way that you need in both directions, which I think is going to be helpful for people, because the RAM is the one thing that when the world normalizes in some way, or people can eventually afford it again, if it ever comes back to where it should be, that's probably the first mod you should do, is add another stick of RAM. Okay, to put the back cover back in, you see these little bent tabs on the bottom right here. These fit into grooves right here, like that. And then when you flip it up, just retighten the captive screws on there, and then the job is done. Oh, wait, nope, not done yet. Not done yet. Now it's done. Please boot, or I'm gonna do this all over again. Okay, so let's talk about the boot process here real quick. This is a PC, so that means there is going to be a memory training process right now. So, there's 128 gigs in this. It could take a minute, or 10. Actually, it won't take 10, but it could take 2 or 3 minutes or more. It's like the first boot on building an AMD Ryzen system on memory it's never seen before. It can take a few minutes, and it freaks people out, because if you don't have a QR code readout, like with a number display that will say 15, so you know that it's training memory, you just see a red LED or something, you think something's broken. So you keep interrupting the process and you keep forcing it to retrain every time you turn it on. The best thing you can do with a Ryzen system is just walk away from it and let it do its thing, because it could do several boot loops and it could do several different attempts on training. This is no exception. This is a Ryzen PC. So what we're looking for right now is when we turn it on, we should see blue breathing for however long it's gonna take to train. If it fails the training, the left half of the LED will turn into a blinking red, which means that I get to go through the whole process again and see if I have the other RAM kit, just to see if we gained anything. But there's plenty of videos of people already putting in another 16 gig stick, which is kind of pointless. I just wanted to know if 128 would work while also showing you the process. So here we go. Not gonna lie, I'm a little scared. Okay, there's the blue breathing. It's very, very possible this may not work with 128 gigs. I mean, it's probably not something they ever even like considered. Oh wait, we got a blue screen.
That was so fast for 128 gigs. Holy crap.
Wow. Okay. How do we check that we have it all? 125 gigs. I got scammed. I want my 3 gigs back. Do you know how much 3 gigs cost today? I guess what we'll do real quick is we'll just open up like Cyberpunk. I see Cyberpunk potentially being a game that could benefit from that, honestly. Okay, so we're gonna compare this to our original run of 1080p, RT low, FSR4 ultra performance. Those were the settings, and then we didn't touch anything else. So we were getting approximately 89-ish FPS. It was bouncing between like 85 and 90. So we're just curious now if we're gonna see any sort of improvement here. But so far the FPS, it's just hard to, this is not a true apples to apples comparison because we're in a different part of the town. So there's a million different things that could change that. But we could, it's not unrealistic to have a slightly lower overall FPS, but a better 1% low, which can make it feel smoother. So that's something we could potentially be feeling, but the crazy part is right now, this game is running great. Well, there you go. The question nobody asked, what happens if you put 128 gigs of dual channel RAM in the Steam machine? Overall, you're probably not gonna really notice. A couple of FPS increase potentially in certain titles, but for the most part, you're probably fine with a single stick. I don't think you should run out and necessarily spend more money on it to throw into there. You're not gonna gain more performance. If anything, I'm heavily researching right now how to unlock this BIOS to be able to overclock it. Even getting 5 or 10 more watts might be an amazing result, and potentially undervolting to get the frequencies up. That's where we really will see the improvement. So, all right guys, thanks for watching. I guess I'll leave it in here. I don't have anywhere else to really use it.